House of Representatives seeks appointment of more judges for the Supreme Court of Nigeria. House advocates coverage of vulnerable Nigerians by the National Health Insurance Authority. And House Committee on Appropriations declares readiness to sustain January to December budget cycle. Hello and welcome to you and your reps on the NTA. I am Victor Azu. Thank you for joining us. The House of Representatives has passed a resolution calling on the federal government to appoint more justices of the Supreme Court. This, members believe, will facilitate quick dispensation of justice in the country. The motion was presented as a matter of urgent public importance by Representative Patrick Umor.
Lending their voice to the motion, some of the lawmakers said there is need for speedy and efficient delivery of justice as the number of justices in Supreme Court has dropped to all-time low of 11 justices, making it 10 justices short of its full complement of 21 justices as stipulated by the Constitution.
Worried that the non-appointment of new justices to the Supreme Court has stalled expeditious, effective and efficient justice delivery, impeded transactions and economic development, limited citizens' access to justice, put the current justices of the court under immense mental and physical pressure, and has affected the policy-making function of the court.
Based on our population and the kind of litigations happening in the country, especially in times like this, we need more hands to get the job done. So I think I'll just put the question. Those in support of this motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
Also at Thursday's plenary, a motion on the need to ban inappropriate educational materials in nursery and pre-primary schools in Nigeria, sponsored by Representative Suleiman Abubakar Gumi, generated heated debate.
Also concerned that the widely used book, Queen Primer, subtly introduced terms like gay, eros, etc. that commonize sexual perversion and immoral behavior, thus exposing innocent children to terms inappropriate for their age.
The impact of this in our classroom climate by way of creating negative environment among our children will impact the society in the next hundreds of decades to come.
I moved my daughter from a school whose name I will not mention for obvious reasons. When I found out at the nursery level, they thought it was okay for bathrooms to be shared.
Other motions before plenary include that of Khadija Bukar Ibrahim, urging the Federal Ministry of Works to suspend and investigate the adoption of concrete technology for roads construction in Nigeria, and insecurity in Nasarawa by Jeremiah Umaru.
If the rising trend of insecurity and kidnapping is not checked, it will destroy lives and ruin the economic fortunes of the state.
Meanwhile, the House has adopted reports presented by ad hoc committees on internal security of the National Assembly, media and public affairs, crude oil theft, and loss of revenue, among others, which were all referred to the Committee of the Whole.
Meanwhile, the bill seeking establishment of the National Polytechnics Commission was also mentioned at plenary. Sponsor of the bill and member representing Afikpo North, Afikpo South Federal Constituency of Ebonyi State, Iduma Igariwey explains the merits.
Almost everything about the vision for this country is about industrialization. And when you talk about industrialization and development generally, you are talking about the technical aspect of education. So it's an aspect of our education I think we need to give more attention. And I think the foundation should be in the body, the regulatory body that should cater for polytechnic education or technical and vocational education generally called. So I do think that there is a very urgent need. It's something that ought to have been there before now. We just have to make that transition from emphasizing too much in this paper qualification to those who are trained in technical and vocational aspects of education. It's to make sure that staff of polytechnics are well trained, regulation of the academic programs, accreditation, and generally how the polytechnic education is run in this country.
And the House of Representatives has urged the federal government through the National Health Insurance Authority to provide.
With an estimated 83 million vulnerable Nigerians, the Green Chamber regards Nigeria's quest for universal health coverage as a tall order. The House seeks urgent intervention to assist vulnerable Nigerians with out-of-pocket expenses for healthcare services.
Urge the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to allocate part of the first subsidy removal savings to the Vulnerable Health Fund. Also urge the National Health Insurance Authority to ensure implementation and monitoring.
The House adopted a motion to investigate alleged mismanagement of billions of COVID-19 intervention funds.
Mandate the Public Account Committee to investigate the expenditure of funds appropriated or disbursed as COVID-19 intervention to ministries, department, agency, or federal government from 2020 to 2022.
As part of the pandemic interventions, they went even to the extent of constructing roads that has nothing to do with human life. It has nothing to do with provision of healthcare facility or services.
Lawmakers urged the security agencies to intensify efforts to secure the release of 30 female students of Federal University Gusau and 8 core members being held captive by bandits in Zamfara State.
These innocent girls are still in captivity with no good food, no good potable drinking water, and no shelter on their heads. Mr. Speaker, also worried that prevalent activities of armed bandits and insurgents, particularly in the abduction of the female student, has been responsible for tremendous reduction in school enrollment of pupils in Zamfara State and entire Northwest.
Some infrastructure motions were brought up by lawmakers.
The House resolved to urge the Federal Ministry of Works to ensure completion of the Kaduna Eastern Bypass project,
reactivate the Sapele, Warri, Koko, and Burutu ports.
Declaration of state of emergency on East-West Road and return the road construction to the Ministry of Niger Delta Development.
The House passed the bill for an act to establish a national center for the coordination and control of the proliferation of small arms and light weapons in Nigeria, as well as a bill for an act to repeal the Fire Service Act 2004 and enact the Federal Fire and Rescue Service Establishment Bill 2023.
Elsewhere, the House of Representatives says it will scrutinize and swiftly pass the 2024 appropriation bill once it is presented by President Tinubu to sustain the January to December budget cycle. This was emphasized during the inaugural meeting of the House Committee on Appropriations.
Chairman of the Committee on Appropriations, Abubakar Bichi, says the committee will facilitate pre-budget meetings with relevant MDAs and sustain a collaborative relationship with its counterparts in the Senate and other stakeholders.
In furtherance of this significant duty, the committee leadership will initiate a strategic meeting with a chairman of finance, national planning, and aid, loan and debt management to gather data that will facilitate the effective function of this committee of ensuring inclusive budget preparation, appreciable implementation, and effective oversight.
Members assured the chairman of their support and commitment towards achieving the core mandates of the committee.
UNG reps later caught up with returning Deputy Chair of the House Committee on Appropriations, Igariwey, to shed light on the preparedness of the committee to receive the 2024 proposals.
I must assure you, the committee is very prepared. As you well know, the journey of the budget doesn't end with Parliament. It starts from the executive arm. So we are expecting that Mr. President will exercise his powers under Section 81 of the Constitution and bring the budget estimates to Parliament. There are too many reasons why the budget ought to come a bit early, so that committees will do due diligence with the estimates. There are a lot of things to do. You have to invite the ministries, departments, and agencies. You have to interrogate how they have used previous budgetary allocations to them. And then they have to also defend whatever they are asking for in those estimates. The feelers we are getting is that the budget is soon on its way, which is good, so that we have the time to invoke legislative processes on the budget. And then we are also committed to this December to January financial cycle. The benefits are enormous. One of the things that went well with the last regime, the Buhari regime, was this adherence to the January to December financial cycle. It allows for proper planning by all sectors of the economy, and then it also gives room for implementation of the budget, because it's not just to do a budget, you also need to implement the budget. Oftentimes, you just find out that the moment the budget is over, people think the work is done, but that should actually be the beginning of our work. And again, we have also observed, which the chairman of the committee also mentioned, that there are still some very important government-owned enterprises that do not bring forth their financial aspects for scrutiny by this parliament. There are still a whole lot of big agencies that generate huge sums of money, and what they do with this money is what this parliament, this particular parliament, this 10th assembly, will want to know. So we intend to expand on our oversight. We intend to make sure that what the Constitution talks about in terms of every money, Section 80 talks of every revenue getting into that consolidated revenue fund, goes through a process of appropriation, because no aspect of the money ought to be appropriated or spent in any manner whatsoever without authorization by Parliament. That's the import from Section 80, 81, 82 of our Constitution. So we intend to exercise our powers over all ministries, agencies, all government parastatals as it concerns revenue generated on behalf of the government, and that ought to go to the National Treasury as stipulated clearly under Section 80 of the Constitution. So I think that is something this committee may be doing differently, but that will be at the core of our powers as clearly granted under Section 88 and 89 of the Constitution, which is the power of oversight.
This week, our Legislative Terms and Tools segment takes a look at resolution. What does it imply in legislative practice, different from its general English usage? Chair of the House Committee on Rules and Business, Francis Waive, is our guide.
Resolutions, the stigmat of motions, is the result, the baby that a motion gives birth to is called a resolution. When a motion is brought before the House, before Parliament, it is discussed or debated, such that at the end of the day, it is either accepted or rejected, or with some amendments, if any. It's that decision taken by the House on the motion that is called a resolution. So if, for example, the motion is defeated on the floor, the majority didn't buy it, the nays had it, then there's no solution, as it were, from that motion. But where the prayers of the motion are either accepted or amended, that conclusion is what is referred to as a resolution of the House.
Reactions continue to trail the decision to procure 360 SUVs for members of the House of Representatives. So we asked Minority Whip of the House, Ali Issa JC, to provide rationale. He also speaks on efforts by the House to relieve ordinary Nigerians of their plight.
I believe most of our constituents are fully aware and they know the importance of our legislative responsibilities. I don't think there's any Nigerians who believe that as lawmakers, as members of the House of Representatives, that we are elected to represent our people and also to oversight the activities of government. I don't think there's any Nigerians who want this country to progress and expect us to be lobbying the ministries to look for vehicles to use in oversighting them, providing offices for us, providing vehicles for us, providing even flight and fuel transportation to allow members to move to all the agencies and do their work is the best and the safest thing for this democracy and for the country. You don't expect me as a chairman of a committee, if I'm going to an agency to oversight them, to request them to provide vehicle for us, request them to fuel the vehicle for us, request them also to pay our hotel bills, and you expect me to go and do the right thing. Let there be budgetary allocations for every committee. Let committees go on oversight functions, use the resources within the National Assembly. Let the National Assembly fund all the activities of members of the House of Representatives on official capacity. I see no any reason why someone will query why will a member of House of Representatives be given a vehicle to go on official assignment. I believe that the present House of Representatives have shown more concern and more commitment to Nigerians more than any other one before. You recall that the presidency submitted a supplementary budget mostly on the issues of palliative, and the target is to intervene to the sufferings of the Nigerians, particularly because of the effect of the subsidy removals. And the House of Representatives didn't waste much time. We were able to ensure that we pass it immediately and return it back to the executive to implement. And as we speak, the National Assembly is also working on engaging the relevant agencies, particularly those in charge of the palliative implementations. So we are working very hard. The leadership and the members are very committed to ensure that the purpose of that money was utilized. The leadership of the National Assembly have been engaging the labor unions even before the federal government interventions, and we didn't stop on that. We are also going to look at the appropriate act that provided the salaries and wages of the civil servants, and we want to make it a situation whereby a certain number of years automatically you know how much you are going to gain in addition without even waiting for government to do that. We will make it a law that all the relevant states too should be able to come up with their on minimum wage. As we speak, some states are still paying civil servants 8,000 as minimum wage, which is very, very unhealthy for our system.
This week on You and Your Reps, the committee segment focuses on federal character. Deputy Chair Adebayo Adepoju was on hand to explain the mandate of the committee and efforts to ensure Nigerians feel the impact of the federal character principle.
The mandate of the Federal Character Committee is to ensure that we have fair, just, and equitable distribution of not only jobs. You see, when people talk about the federal character, people look at it and talk about jobs. But I can tell you, jobs is definitely a part of it, but not what it's all about in its entirety. It's also about the fair, just, and equitable distribution of economic resources of this country, on how we can ensure that when you have 40 things, coming to this country, we don't have 30 of it going to one part of the nation while you have 10 going to another side. If you look at that distribution, there's definitely something wrong. So we want to make sure that as the North is developing, the South is developing as well. And the various 6 geopolitical zones of this nation are also equally developing at the same time. So we're more into making sure the stability of this nation, is held, and the cohesion of this country as a whole is sustained, over a period of time. And we hope that period of time is going to be a lifetime between us and even beyond us. So it's more about holding a nation as one and bringing everybody together so we can always find that point where we can all believe in the project Nigeria and forge this nation forward. The committee is ready to do its job. We're very excited about where we are right now. We've started inviting the MDAs, the agencies. We already have a schedule of agencies that we need to talk to, that we need to speak with, that we need to look at their nominal role, and also, for investigative, for us to know exactly what's going on and how fair they've been to Nigerians, because we represent Nigeria. So we have been elected, to make the right decisions for Nigerians. So we're happy where we are right now, and we hope to definitely, ensure that the resources of this nation, that we all have collectively is equitably distributed. So I can definitely assure Nigerians that we're not here to compromise on our integrity. We're not here to compromise on what we believe is most important to this nation, and we're not here to compromise on justice. So if we find an agency wanting, we're going to make sure that it's corrected. It's very important because these are the kind of things that threaten the stability of this country. And if you sit down and think about it, we already have a lot of divisive things that kind of separate us as a nation. So if we can hold our side and make sure that besides things like religion that separates us, that we try to make sure brings us together, things like where we're from, the tribes we're from, the ethnicities and things like that, we can have a nation where everybody feels a part of that project. And that's where we come in.
Well, we'll see how the committee fares in the weeks and months ahead. That's been You and Your Reps. We thank you for keeping a date with us. I am Victor, as we join us again.